Hey guys, Willie Mayette from JAZZEDGE. Welcome to the Confident Improviser podcast. This is episode number 41, and today we're going to talk about how to improvise over dominant chords. This is part one. So what I'm talking about is improvisation like this. Let me put on my iReal Pro, like just being able to... All right, so how do we improvise over our dominant chords? All right, so the first thing is we want to understand that when we're improvising, typically we're going to be playing those rootless chords or maybe a bass line or something in the left hand. So depending on what you're going to do in your left hand, it might kind of change around your improvisation a bit. All right? What I mean by that is if you're playing the left hand rootless chords, you might find that some of them kind of get in the way of your right hand. Whereas if you're doing a bass line, you might have a lot more room in between the hands. So with that in mind, pay attention to what I wrote out here, and that is that you need to sometimes change the octave of the hand, either the left hand or the right hand. So in this example right here, you see I have... Right, so like I got my thumb on the D here in my left hand, and then I have to hit it again in the right hand. So what is a player to do? Well, one thing you can do is just play a 3-note rootless chord voicing. So see how I have C7 here. So this is E, A, B flat, and D. And all I'm doing is just leaving off the D in the right hand. And when I come up to measure 2 here, I hit the B flat, right? I can go ahead and bring that D back in. And then I just move my thumb out of the way in the left hand again when I start coming down. The other thing you can do is play it up an octave. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind, that your improvisation might change a little bit depending on where your hands are. Now, I'm using these rootless chord voicings because a lot of times we're going to be playing along with a backing track, or we're going to be playing along with a bass player or other instrumentalist. All right, so today we're going to be focusing on rootless chords with the left hand. Again, that C7 rootless chord, in case you didn't catch it, it's E, A, B flat, and D. All right, that's it. We're going to be playing that exact same chord all throughout today's lesson. So those are the notes. You can go ahead and get those down with your left hand. Notice I'm using all my fingers except my 4th finger. My 4th finger is not being used. Also notice what I said here. Check out episode 27 on target notes, okay? So if you have not looked at that episode on target notes, we're going to be talking about target notes today, so make sure you understand what target notes are. And lastly, that left hand rhythm, if you want to change that around, you can go ahead and change it around. You can get kind of a comping rhythm there. All right, so this is just your basic Mixolydian scale run. Right? So you're just going up and down the Mixolydian scale. Why the Mixolydian scale? Well, that's a scale that works perfectly for dominant 7th chords. Basically, it's your major scale with a flatted 7th. Now, typically a lot of students are like, okay, well, what scales do I use to improvise over a dominant 7th chord? And I'm here to tell you that you can pretty much do almost anything, right? It really depends on the tension and release, and it depends on your target notes, right? So, for instance, check this out. I could put on my dominant 7th improvisation shed here. Right, so I'm just like messing around here with my chromatic scale. I could do all of my chromatic notes. Obviously, when I hit a B natural, it's not going to sound all that great, but if I'm doing that as part of a line and I'm not hanging on that note, it's going to sound absolutely fine. In fact, that B natural is part of our dominant 7th bebop scale, right? So you could really use just about any note. You could throw the whole kitchen sink at a dominant 7th chord. So let's talk about a little bit more, like kind of bringing this into focus. So the first thing you want to do is find your target notes. I've talked about target notes before. Yes, super, super important. Target notes really help to define your improvisation and define your lines a lot more. Now, what I did here, very simple. I have my 3rd, I have my flat 7, I have my 5th, and I have my root. Okay, so all I did is I'm just playing that C7 chord in the left hand. In the right hand, I'm going to do the third for a half note, the flat 7 for a half note, the 5th for a half note, and the root for a half note. And I'm just going to do all of this right up an octave. Now, just real simple, let's just go ahead and play that along with the backing track just to make sure we have it. And now the stronger of these notes, the stronger of these target notes is most definitely the 3rd and the 7th. Okay? The 5th and the root are weaker notes, meaning that the 5th and the root don't really define the chord that much, whereas that 3rd and the 7th really define the chord. Okay, so now you get your target notes. Now it's a matter of, let's start to fill them in. I got 2 exercises here for you. So the first one is, all you do is just fill in the notes in between those target notes with your scale. So again, we're going to utilize that C Mixolydian scale. So look at what I did here. I started on my 3rd, and then I go right up to my 7th, and I come down to the 5th. Okay? So I'm just doing all 8th notes. Don't mess around with quarter notes, 8th res, triplets just yet. Just do 8th notes. It's a lot easier for you, and it's a great way to get started. Okay, so again, if I take a look here, you see that I have my 3rd, right? I have my flatted 7th, I have my 5th, and I have my root. All right, now, in between here, what do I have? I have 3 8th notes, right? And then another 3 8th notes, and then another 3 8th notes. Okay, so remember that the 3rd, the flat 7, the 5th, the root, those are all half notes. So this is spanning over 2 measures, right? So I have the 3rd to the 7th, that's starting on beat 1, and then the 7th comes in on beat 3. So I have beat 1, that's going to be my first 8th note, right? This beat 1 right here. And then I need to move into this flatted 7th. So what am I going to do? I'm going to fill it in. How many 8th notes do I have to fill it in? Well, again, if this is beat 1, I have 1 and 2 and, right? So I have 3 8th notes here that I could choose before I get to the flatted 7th. Now, do I have to just go up like I did here? So literally, I just went up, right? So the 3rd, the 11th, the 5th, the 13th, up to the flatted 7th. Or, note-wise, that's E, F, G, A, B flat. Did I have to do that? No, I could have done that as well. Here's E, F, G, C, B flat. Right? So you see how I went up, I skipped up, and then I came down. So I could play around with this. I can come up with line after line after line. Right? So just starting with this first measure here. So I had the 3rd to the 7th to the 5th. Let's not even worry about going on to the rest of this. All right? So the rest of this, we'll do that later. So we'll just end right here at that 5th. Okay, well, what other line could I do? So you see I went E, C, B flat. So I'm already hitting the 7th, right, on beat 2. But it's like, wait a second, I got to get that on beat 3. So I go down a half step to the A and then come back up to the B flat. So nothing says that I can't hit that target note twice. Okay. What if I did E, E, D, C, B flat, then to my 5th? Right, so you see that there are many different ways in which I can get from target note to target note. But the idea is that I'm trying to go from that target note, the 3rd, to the next target note, the flat 7th, to the next target note, the 5th. Okay, that's the exercise. So again, let me play it for you. Now, fingering-wise, this is where you're just going to have to figure that out as you go, okay? And that's important because nobody can tell you the fingering for improvisation, right? It's the kind of thing that you just have to kind of learn it as you go. And this is a great exercise to practice that. So now, let's play it along with the band. Pretty simple. So I'm starting thumb. I'll give you the fingering that I'm using. 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, crossover, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's just a real quick fingering that I came up with here. You can also do 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so whatever fingering makes most sense for you, you're going to figure out that fingering on your own. All right, now, example 2 here. This is where it starts to get fun. Free form. Okay, so free form, try finding a chord tone every 2 beats. So here's an example here, and you can see again, I have now the 5th, I have the 3rd, I have the flatted 7th, and then I'm going to my root. So let me play it for you. Again. One more time. So this is G, F, E, D, E, F, G, A, B flat, A, G, D, C. Okay, along with the band. Whoops. Do it one more time. All right, so there's an example of like I just kind of moving between different target notes. So now these have all been written out, and what I did was I gave you space here that you could write out 2 of your own. But let's just try going through a couple more right now. So what I'm trying to do is do a consistent 8th note line, and with a consistent 8th note line, that's going to give me 8 attacks in a 4/4 measure. That basically means I'm going to have 8 8th notes in a 4/4 measure. All right? So then my first beat is going to be a chord tone. Whatever chord tone. The root, the 3rd, the 5th, or the 7th. Hey, Willie, can I use a tension there? Sure you can, but it's just not going to be as strong. So for right now, if you're working on this exercise, I say stick with one of those 4 chord tones. The root, the 3rd, the 5th, or the 7th. Okay? I'm going to do that on beat 1, and I'm going to do that again on beat 3. Now, why do I do it on beat 1 and then beat 3? Because I'm trying to like make it so that the length of time is not too far, right? So I have that first beat, okay? First beat, I'm going to do a chord tone here on the first beat, and then the rest is going to be filled in with scale. And then the next one on the 3rd beat, it's going to be again a chord tone, and then the rest will be filled in with a scale. Right? So another way of looking at this is you have a chord tone on beat 1, and you have a chord tone on beat 3 as well. Everything in between, okay, is scale. Okay, so everything on beat 2 and beat 4, so basically on the end of 3, the end of 4, the end of 1, and the end of 2. All of those are going to be just scale degrees. Again, you could hit that chord tone anywhere within that N2 end or the N4 end. That's fine, just as long as you get back to it for beat 1 and beat 3. All right, so let's put this into practice. Let me start with, say, E. Okay, so I'm going to go 1 and 2 and, okay, so now I can go back to E again, right? 3 and 4 and 1 and, so see how I did the B flat? So what did I do here? So I did E, D, C, D, E, all right, so now I'm on beat 3. So this is 1 and 2 and 3. Now I'm going to get down to my B flat. So I'm on 3 and, which is D, 4, which is C. Now I got to get over to B flat. So what can I do? I got one more note to choose. I could go underneath and go to the A and then come up to the B flat, or go down to that B natural and hit that B flat on beat 1 of the 2nd measure. So that gives me a line like this. Now, from the B flat, let's say I want to go up to the 5th up here, the G. So see how I could do that? Now, notice I leaped out of this note, right? So I did B flat, C, D, E, then I leaped up to G. Okay, I did a skip up there to G. Now, Skips and leaps are fine as long as they're coming out of your chord tones. Listen to what happens if I did. Let's see. Hear that skip from like the 9th up to the G, right? The D up to the G. It's not as strong as the E up to the G. So when you're leaping or skipping, right, not a stepwise motion, right? Remember, scalar motion is stepwise motion. When you're skipping, skipping notes or leaping from one note to another, usually it's best if you skip or leap out of a chord tone, right? You don't obviously have to do this all of the time. And as you get better at this kind of stuff, you'll break the rules like all of us do. But when you're first learning, you want this stuff to sound good, right? So the best way for it to sound good is to follow some of these, rules of thumb to make sure that you're, setting yourself up for success. So again, let me just go ahead through and I'll show you just like doing this every 2 beats. Oops. You see, I could just practice just trying to really get some solidness in my improvisation. Why is this important, right? And why am I just doing so much teaching on target notes and having that solid line in your improvisation? Because typically, how I learned improvisation was a teacher said, okay, you got a dominant 7th chord, it's a Mixolydian scale. Go ahead and improvise. Well, okay, great, but what notes do I choose, right? What rhythm do I use? All right, we're taking away the rhythm question right away. It's all 8th notes for right now. What notes do you choose? Well, you're going to use the notes from the C Mixolydian scale. That's one option, of course. Remember, there are many different options of scales that you can choose, and that's confusing as well. So I know I'm going to use the notes of the C Mixolydian scale, but what notes am I going to start with, all right? And what notes am I going to use in my solo to make it sound good? That's where those target notes come in, right? You start with the target notes, you try and get between target note to target note to target note, and what it does is it creates a solo then you might not be blowing the doors off, anyone's house, with your solo, but it's going to sound good. Right? It's going to sound good. It's going to sound all right. Whereas I could also just go ahead and improvise like this and just simply say, all right, this is C Mixolydian scale. Right? I mean, it sounds like I'm doing nothing. It sounds like I'm literally just playing notes and nothing is really happening. But now listen to what happens when I do the chord tones. And every now and again, I'll hit the wrong note on a downbeat. One time I hit the F because I just kind of ran out of notes there, and I didn't want to put any chromaticism in just yet. And that happens. It's okay. But do you hear how, for the most part, that improvisation sounds a lot more solid and together than if I just randomly play that Mixolydian scale, okay? So anyway, a couple of things I want to let you know is that all of these episodes now for the podcast are now going to be on my YouTube channel. So just do a search for the word JAZZEDGE, and then I'll take you to the channel and you'll be able to see the Confident Improviser podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you get updates, and there's a whole bunch of other great stuff on the channel, including Jazz Piano Daily, right? If you have not checked out Jazz Piano Daily yet, this is free daily jazz piano lessons. Yes, I said free jazz piano lessons every single day, covering some fantastic topics. And guess what? sheet music is included. So you just can't beat the price, all right? So if you're interested in jazz piano and other styles, because I don't just teach jazz in Jazz Piano Daily. We're talking about other things as well. So if you're interested in learning the piano and you want to get started with my lessons, this is a great way of doing it. Can't recommend it more because the price is just right. Right? So anyway, check out jazzpianodaily.com or take a look at the Jazz Piano Daily lessons right on my YouTube channel. All right, so that's it for me, guys. Thanks a lot. Remember, if you are a member of the Jazz Edge site, you're welcome to join me every other Thursday for my Jazz Edge core training. So with that, I will see you guys soon.